ITSE, welcome. Thank you for joining us at the Museum of Graffiti Artists Talk program, Artist Talk Live.
Thanks.
So you have quite a fascinating story. I'm a fan of your style writing. You're fantastic. You've been putting in work for 10 years. So let me read a bit about you to our visitors, just a quick bio about you. And ITSE is raised in Birmingham, Alabama. She's had a unique start as an artist, first as a specialty wedding cake decorator, where she learned about color theory, design, and sculpting. And then ITSE first found interest in graffiti when she moved into an apartment near Freight Main Line in October 2010. She spent much of her youth traveling across country, crashing on sofas and sleeping in her car, and having lived in many cities, including Baltimore, Minneapolis, and parts of Southern Oregon and Northern California. In 2019, she combined her love of destruction and skills in cake decorating to create a photo series called Cake and Destroy, which was on display during Art Basel in 2019. In 2020, she started on a new journey to cultivate hemp for CBD extraction on a large scale. Right on. Specifically working on mutation breedings of plants for genetic variations. Wow, you're quite accomplished and varied in your interests. I want to start our conversation with the presentation. Well, first off, welcome.
Yeah,
you're joining us from Oregon.
Yeah.
Right on. So, okay, so let's start from the beginning. One of the things people should know is that you're from Alabama.
Yeah.
Tell us about coming up in Alabama.
Yeah, so it's a really small city compared to a lot of other cities for people to grow up in. There's not that much graffiti. It's like a pretty small like writing scene. But there's a lot of trains there, and so that's really how I found interest in graffiti. And yeah, that's kind of what I've like geared myself towards mainly since then, has been freight trains. So yeah.
We were talking earlier about, right, when you come into the writing culture, first you don't really know much. You kind of just catch on through local friends at high school and so on. And then you discover there's this world that's out there and that's been happening for a while. In terms of once you started getting familiar with the culture of writers, what history were you uncovering that you were building on top of?
I would say the kind of the main people who stick out to me would be like there were writers like Days and Mayer that were in Birmingham. Obviously, they started writing about 30 years ago, so it's kind of like they didn't have the means to like, know of other people's names in their cities necessarily. But let's see. There's also like different freight crews that I took note of, like SFR was a pretty popular graffiti crew. A lot of the people that were writing graffiti in Birmingham, like before me, a lot of them came from New Orleans. I'm not really sure why, but yeah, I think maybe one of them moved and was like, hey man, you need to come, stay in the city too, or whatever.
So was the scene mostly on freights, or was it also hitting up local walls?
I would say probably more so walls than freights. Well, I don't know. The SFR people, I would say that they were more freight driven, and a lot of their styles were really legible. So perfect for freight graffiti and for somebody who's like starting out painting. Obviously if you are starting out, it's hard to like read really stylized graffiti. So I really took note of some of those people just based on that I could read what it said. Yeah.
So when we think about now, you're 10 years into this culture, and you're understanding style writing. You're at a level now where um, you've kind of perhaps earned your stripes, right? When you were younger, when you were first coming up on the scene in Alabama, in terms of like the camaraderie with boys. I mean, was there any competition with you? Were you just treated like one of the boys, or were you kind of treated any different because you were a girl painter?
I feel like I was treated really differently. I like, especially starting out, like now I feel like I'm treated more so like things go in my favor. Like people give me a little more respect. Where when I was younger, I feel like people were like, "Get out of here!" Like you're whack and you're a girl. Like what are we gonna like do with you? We're gonna take you to paint trains, or you're like almost like um more of a joke than just being a toy, if that makes.
Right. And so that what was pushing you in terms of trying to just get as good as the boys with style writing?
Oh, for sure, for sure. Like my personality type in general is just like, if you tell me that I'm not gonna do something or something, then I'm gonna work harder to do it and to kind of prove it to those people or to myself too.
It's one of the things that I've learned about contemporary style writing, now that more women like yourself have been painting, is that good style writing has no particular indicators of gender, right?
Right,
It's like letters are letters,
right.
and they rock and they flow, and but there's something in the way that you're painting that is in a great tradition, but also and I think many of the style writers here, including Sess, would even agree, that there's a great deal of sense of form and composition and flow, and as well, with the colors you're using. I mean, you've been doing some amazing work, and not to fan out on you, but I love style writing, and that I appreciate that in good style writers, whether you're male or female. And but that said, on that long diatribe, there's something special about you in that you are a cake designer and a baker, an award-winning cake designer. Tell us about this part of your life, and has the graffiti, what you've learned from graffiti, applied itself to some of this work?
Yeah. So I started decorating cakes around the same time that I found graffiti. I was like 18, 19 years old. Um, and I just needed a job at the time, and my cousin-in-law, he worked at a bakery and hired me. And they did cakes there, and I thought it was pretty interesting and it looked fun. So I just started trying to do it and watching YouTube videos and stuff like that. Um, let's see. I feel like until recently, I guess I haven't felt like my career has really gone hand in hand too much, besides just like general use of colors together, or like patterns, like trying I feel like just overall any different elements that you use kind of make you an overall better artist, no matter like what mediums you're using. So I feel like it has helped me.
And also, you've crossed over with a kind of into the art world per se, 2019, when you did Cake and Destroy, which is, again, we said earlier about you enjoying destruction, and
Yeah.
and so tell me, what inspired this whole series of photographs, and particularly the cakes?
Yeah. So I guess I wanted to make some cakes like for display. Like there's just different cakes that I'm like, oh, I would like to make this cake, but I feel like it's almost like pointless to me to just like take it, like to make the cake and then take a photo of it or have a cake on display. I feel like that's like somewhat boring. Um, and then I also like have a desire for destruction, but also creation at the same uh, point in time. So I feel like this just kind of combines all of those elements together. And I mean, I don't know. I feel like who doesn't like want to see a hot girl smash a really awesome cake?
No, it's a lovely series, and it's again part of what is so interesting to me when I do these artist talks is often when we discover the hidden talents or the other talents that artists pursue, and of course this idea of the cake and the destruction and the beautiful women and the photography. How was it received for you? How?
I feel like people really loved it. Like I haven't had anybody like not like it. I feel like several people told me that was like their favorite thing that they saw. And it's also just a really fun experience. Um like just doing the photo shoots themselves. Like all of the girls have a blast and um yeah, it's just really fun overall. And then then I have like a really cool portfolio too of cakes that aren't so boring.
So now, in terms of, I mean, again, this is an extension of your artistic practice. Is this something you want to pursue further, or just okay, it's a one of, and then I'm just going to go back to the trains?
I think I will continue to pursue it. Um, I think right now, I've taken a little bit of a break. Just working on the hemp farm, is kind of a lot. But I do plan on continuing the series, and I have several girls that I've spoken with. I actually want to kind of take it on the road a little bit, where I did have one girl fly to Minneapolis for the photo shoot, but besides that, all of the other girls were pretty local. So I would love to travel to have specific models that I've spoken with to do a couple of shoots, and I have some cool cakes in mind that I want to do.
So, do you compete as a cake designer? Do you do those competitions?
Yeah, I do. I haven't done one in a couple of years. I feel like it's just a lot of effort to like, all you essentially get is like a title, like a ribbon.
Yeah.
Like it's really more so if you have a bakery and you want to promote your bakery, that's a great way to do that. But that's not really like the avenue that I'm trying to go.
Right.
So
So it seems like the CBD, that naturopathic way is the way to go for you.
yeah, yeah, I think so. I really enjoy it. I mean, it's just it's almost like a another form of creation, um, just because like I'm specializing in like seed breeding, and like I was saying, like genetic mutations. So you know, I get to see this thing that like technically I I don't know if I would say I created it, but when you're like breeding plants and things like that, it does give you a sense of creation, like you made it. So it's pretty cool.
And so, I mean, and of course, you're in Oregon, which is a very progressive state, for hemp and weed. So you're kind of avoiding the politics that many other states have.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Well, I mean, again, going back to the trains, you have a deep love for these boxcar trains, and you know them specifically by type.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That's I'm sure we'll get to some of the pictures.
Mhm.
But I mean, there's certain different trains that are kind of like rare or don't exist anymore, or like there might be five of that specific boxcar that like Union Pacific used to own it, and they sold all of them off to short line companies. And so like a great example of that would be like Sioux Line, which I'm sure that will come up in the photos. But like, I wanted to paint one of those Sioux Line boxcars, like this one specific kind that is like, it's all white except for it has a red door, and then it just says Sioux Line in big black letters across the top. So me and a painting partner, Value, we kind of recreated that in a sense because I could not find one anywhere. But I've found a lot of, I don't know, I guess I have a lot of passion for finding those types of like vintage cars that kind of like I'll never, like, no one else is going to like appreciate that car again. Like it's kind of like been forgotten about and left somewhere. And then it's exciting to go and like find it somewhere and kind
So
of.
I gather you're research oriented about the trains themselves.
Yeah, definitely. They all have specific numbers to them that you can call in and track them, and find out where they are, and where they're going. And, and that's a lot of the times how I've been able to find some of the, rare cars that I've been looking to find.
So it's always an interesting conversation with artists who think and believe their name should be everywhere and anywhere they please, and how it's this reclamation of space. And this picture is great to me because this is an abandoned space, and I always like that about abandoned spaces that have graffiti on them because they're reclaimed by people.
Mm-hmm.
They're giving them a bit of life, a bit
Yeah.
of pulse, a bit of structure. Um, and so, yeah, so why ITSE everywhere? Why are you obsessed about having your name everywhere?
Let's see. I guess for me, I would say that it's more so about the adventure of doing it. I mean, I do like to drive through a city and, um, obviously see my name places, and I like to see my name on trains, obviously. But I would say overall, all of it for me is more so about the experience. Like I could paint a train and the next day it roll off a cliff and I really could care less. I mean, I might be like, man, I wish I got a picture of that one. It was really good. But um, really,
What,
it's just,
what's more satisfying to you, hitting a train or painting a wall?
um, man, I guess it depends on like what type of train, maybe like if it was a special train or something. um I would I would probably always pick a train over a wall, but there is something about a wall that is more satisfying based on only the fact that I have unlimited time, so that I feel like I could like flex harder on the wall and do
Right.
a better job. Where in painting trains, most of the time I'm painting at night. So sometimes I come back the next day and I'm like, that was the wrong color, or just
Yeah.
small mistakes.
ITSE, do you go out on your own to paint trains, or do you go out with a second person, third person
Um,
backup?
I like to go out and paint with other people. Like I feel like it's more fun. Like it like becomes like you know, a social activity. And that's the majority of the friends that I have I've made through graffiti. I do go out and paint trains by myself. But I would say most of the time I try to get somebody to go out and paint with me, so I'm not by.
Yeah, I used to like going out with a crew instead. It just also because when I was younger, I was smaller, and the danger. I mean, there's real danger out there on your own, unless you have size. But yeah, I like being with the crew because it makes it more fun. So I
Yeah.
want to talk about this because you're again going back to the research and commitment you have to these trains and research. You researched where this Barnum and Bailey train was laid up.
Hmm. Yeah.
Tell us about this and why you did the research to find these trains.
So it was pretty random. I was just watching trains, like just benching trains, and I saw a line of trains go by with two Barnum and Bailey, like passenger cars on them. And I was like, oh my God, like why were those on a mixed line? Like they were just like mingled in with other boxcars and stuff. And so it inspired me to look it up. And I was like, oh wow, the circus closed. Like I didn't even know that. So then I realized they had sold off all of their passenger cars that they had. So they all have numbers. There's the blue line and the red line, that they both traveled the country on. Um, and I believe the picture that's up right now, I I think people lived in those. I'm not 100% sure. But I think there's like beds and stuff in there where they stayed there. But yeah, so they all have numbers. So I tracked all of them to find out which ones would be the easiest. And some of them have like, you can't find any data on them. But then some of them kind of give you a tip on like who purchased it and where they're located. And so from that, I was able to look on maps and then find the trains. Um, and then go
Itzy,
out in the dark and hope that they're there.
yo,
Like,
I'm completely fascinated. Is this kind of kind of common at all for somebody to be able to track their trains and kind of have so much passion? Uh,
oh, I feel like some people do. I don't know how many people do or like what they do it for, maybe. Um, but Value taught me a lot about that. Like he has like tracked cars for a long time and stuff. Like if you have a train that you haven't finished or something like that got away from you, like he's done that like with whole cars before. Like we've done that together. Where we started painting a whole car and it was at a spot where the workers showed up when they weren't supposed to be there. Like it was a weekend, but they showed up anyways. So we had to leave our whole car that we spent like 12 hours on or something. And we were able to track it for close to a year, and then go paint it at a different spot. So, um, you know,
if we were to go track this whole car, does it still exist? The Barnum and
yeah,
Bailey? Oh, nice.
yeah,
That's one thing I like about freights. You get long play off of them.
yeah, for sure. And they travel across the country.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Another thing that I find really interesting in your story, and I was surprised actually to kind of stumble on this in the photograph. I was like, I don't see it. I was at first I was kind of like, it's right in front of you in plain sight. You guys kind of blended in the fonts to make it look like a branded train.
Yeah,
Um,
and that was so that is a Canadian Pacific boxcar. So it was like all red whenever we got it. So then we painted it all white. But we left the door red like the original Sioux line. We did our lettering and then we came back through and rusted, like did like a faux finish, made it look like rust on the rest of the car.
so so is this you mentioned to me earlier that it's almost like having your own creating your own train brand, you're branding your own train line, so to speak. It's like
Yeah.
you have ownership of it.
Yeah, like this specific car, some people who make model trains, they've like made these decals that say value in ITSE so that like HO scale, like model, like not people into graffiti, but like people who are like into the model railroad, um like they like this car because they know what the Sioux line is, and they're like, oh, what is this? And I'm not sure if they think that like it's graffiti people, or if they think that it's like the train lines did it, or that it's an old type of car, like a like Value ITSE was an old train system that they don't really know about too much or something, but they've like made little stickers where HO scale collectors can make their own.
Nice. No, it's clever and it's subversive. And again, thematically on that, to you start making your letter, your messaging and your letters way simpler, easier to read from miles away.
Yeah.
Um, there's this interesting arc here where, again, coming back to the straight letters, to the simple styles.
Yeah.
Tell us about value and bombing with value. Uh, have you had many writing partners in terms of as you start coming up and you get better at style writing? What other writers started being in your space, in your generation?
Yeah. Well, as far as Value goes, like I feel like he taught me a lot. Like he is just a really talented artist in general. And I feel like it's really valuable to have someone to paint with that pushes you to be better, and to do better, and then also for you to push people, like your partner, to be like, hey, like let's do this, like what about this? And I feel like it's important whenever um looking for a partner to paint with, that it is somebody who is inspiring, that you want to be around. And I found that with the two crews that I'm in, GDC and GNK, like those guys just inspire me and are really good people that I want to be around and that I want to paint with, and will push me to do better.
And again, you're trying new things with typography. Again, being a style writer, um, how do you feel about just kind of getting it into this space now with a different kind of style writing away from graffiti? This could have been easily a branded subway line, right? A type of project.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoy it. I feel like Um, in one way, graffiti is very abstract. Like graffiti, like style writing is very abstract. Like there's kind of rules, but there's not. Um, and so that is actually, to me, I feel like that's really difficult. Like especially when you're starting out, you're like, well, like what is good? Like I think this looks good. Like when you're learning, like what is style? Where a lot of like the typography, it's like I guess more straightforward, and it also I feel like it appeals to more people. Like for some reason, like this train in the photo, for example, like to me, like if it had graffiti on it, like it would still look really awesome. But I feel like there's something about it that just looks more put together when it's something that looks like typography, which I don't really have any like background in. Like I'm not a graphic designer or anything like that. Like I have a couple of books that I'll reference, or like um, for instance, this, like the lettering itself actually came from this train's um like logo. I believe it was like RTA, and like
Hmm.
the way that it looks is very similar to um its original like logo. Like I believe this is a Chicago Highliner. I don't know what the like RTA stands for though.
Nice. Now, I like this one a lot. It's a great picture, actually.
Oh
Um,
yeah. I mean I love painting whole cars. Like for some reason it's just like it's way more work to get into the yard with your ladders, like your rollers, like all of these bags, like a absolute ridiculous amount of paint. It's like way more work to accomplish as well, but it's like, I don't know, it's just way more rewarding too. Um, like, I don't know, it's like somebody could go over your panel that you did, or I don't know, there's something about it where you can just do it, even something really simple, but it's like just as rewarding because it's just.
Have you ever had any big scare when you were in a yard, like a good chase story, or do you ever get busted for riding trains?
Um, Not, I mean, I have had a cop pull in the yard before. And it was like a new yard that me and this guy Scum were painting in. Um, and like we were getting photos. We were like, we had just painted two reefers, like two Armans right beside each other. And when we were leaving, we were like pretty much like, oh yeah, that was really chill. That was awesome. And then like a headlights pull in, and like immediately like it's like the spotlight, and I was like, cop, and we just ran. But like besides that, I've been like spotlighted from a helicopter. I feel like that was pretty terrifying because I
Yeah.
was, where am I gonna go? Like that's it, pretty much. Um, but I feel like they were just like kind of like playing with us because there was no reason for them to do that, but they sure did shine a light like right
Yeah.
down the line. So,
So let me ask you something about this experience for you. I mean, you really become quite good at being a style writer. And now you've become aware of the history of style writing in New York and well, throughout regions throughout the world. Have you painted in New York? Have you visited New York to paint at all?
I have, yeah.
Yeah.
I've been to New York a couple of times. I've painted mainly walls when I've come there, but I've also painted some trains there with Cuba and Stay Two that live out in the New York area. Um,
Did you feel like many writers do, like it's a pilgrimage, you have to go there, you have to go get up in New York, or was it just
no,
holiday?
really felt that way. I mean, I have always been like, oh, I, want to go there, obviously, but I never like really felt like I had to go there and like leave my name, which may be because I'm like more geared towards freights than bombing, where like I feel like a bomber would or somebody more interested in that aspect of it would probably be like, I have to get my name all over New York. Like that's where all
Right.
of the people like are gonna see it, and it's gonna be awesome.
So has graffiti given you opportunities to kind of travel as a writer to other states or to other countries?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I think about like if I didn't write graffiti, like what the hell would a vacation be? Like I don't even know. Like I mean, I guess, it is nice to like go to the beach or like go to the mountains or something like that. Um, but I mean, I've there's a huge network of people that, you know, I can just hop in my car right now and drive and just hit up my friends or make new friends in, all
Yeah,
different states. I'm planning on going and traveling in Europe. I was supposed to go like now, like the end of June, beginning of July, and stay for a month. And like start out in Germany and go to the Molotov headquarters and go paint at this music festival out there. But all of that, because COVID, kind of got delayed. But I do plan on going, once everything's like it's safe to travel, I guess.
sure. Now you can participate in the world stage, actually, which is a pretty amazing thing now with
Yeah.
Instagram and also, oh, but you're good. You know, you're a good painter. And one thing I appreciate about Europeans is that they like good style writers.
Yeah.
Um, and you are a committed style writer. So we're showing this video, this project you did for Wall Sessions. Tell us about this. It's kind of like a graffiti style project, but also kind of a commercial gig.
Yeah, so I don't really do that many commercial gigs. I guess I've never tried to actively pursue making money off graffiti or making any type of career out of it. Um, but yeah, this, I mean, I felt like this was a no-brainer of something that I would want to do because they were just like, you can do whatever you want and get paid to do it. So it's not like I'm, having to do, um, like lettering for a company's sign or something like that
Mhm.
that I might not want to do. Um, they were pretty much like, just paint this mural up in your hometown, and what you like about your hometown. So we have the train. I have like the vintage logo for Birmingham. Like they have this like iron gate that's like the Magic City. Um, yeah, and so I mean, I feel like that was pretty cool. But overall, I don't do that many commission gigs just because I feel like most of the time, commission work, people have something in mind that they want you to do. Um, and if I'm going to paint, I pretty much just want to paint whatever I want to paint.
Mhm. No, I get it. Well, one of the things I do appreciate about this and about your work is that you didn't go to art school for this. You taught yourself, and your friends taught you, and it shows how far you can actually go with the the formality of graffiti style writing and crossing over to be able to do these projects.
Yeah.
It seems to me that clearly, I mean, if you wanted to do bigger buildings, you could knock them out.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I would definitely try. Like if there was other things to paint, obviously I want to paint things that I want to paint, but most of the time people will be like, "Oh, we're a flower store. Will you paint some flowers on the side of our building?" I'm like, probably not.
So we talked earlier about doing canvas works, and you mentioned that yeah, you do private practice for yourself. Yeah, you're not ready to kind of release that to the public, but you are
Right.
kind of broadening your horizons now.
Yeah, and I've painted abstract art for a really long time. It's just something that I kind of keep private. I feel like that maybe people in the graffiti community are probably not interested in seeing those things, so I don't really share much of that with anyone but myself. It's just something that I enjoy. Like I enjoy looking at other people's abstract art. I feel like it's like pretty much the freest form of expression, and I feel like it shows a lot of emotion a lot of the times, or at least for the things that I paint, that is what I feel when I look at them. But it's obviously very open to the viewer's interpretation, which I also really like that aspect of it. It's kind of one of those, when you see it, you sum up what you want to see or however you see it. It's not an actual thing, and no one's telling you a certain the way that you're supposed to see it, if that makes
I mean,
sense.
do you feel that lettering, like wall style lettering, for example, has a certain constraint in that way that it has to read a certain way, has to feel a certain way, that I mean, there are kind of boundaries within it.
I do in a sense and don't at the same time. That's like it's really hard. Like I feel like um I personally put myself in a box, like a certain way that I feel like things have to be or have to look, or like, when you're sketching something you're like, no, that doesn't look right. Like that's so wrong. Like I don't know if I could necessarily tell you why it's so wrong, but I feel like the graffiti community in general, there's a lot of rules and everybody's rules are going to be really different. But I feel like if you're confident in your painting overall, um, that's kind of how you get better and you're able to develop. I feel like balance is probably um, a really big one. Like I feel like as long as the piece looks balanced. But then every now and then, like somebody might paint something, and I'll be like, I don't know why that just looks so good. Like, but one letter is like just thrown up in the air really high, but it's like just because of the way they executed it, it looked really good.
Well, let's talk about your painting here on this freight. I mean, you talk about these long lines, these lines that kind of, you know, kind of are really elongated and reaching. I mean, you like to paint bigger than yourself. It
Yeah.
seems your scale matters to you, which I
Yeah.
like. And
Um,
you have long lines. That's not easy.
yeah, a lot of the lines, like I don't know why I sketch like that or anything, but I've had a lot of people like tell me like, "Oh wow, like all of your letters have these really long straight lines." And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, I guess that, helps to make me better. There's like no breaks in them." Um, but yeah. Um,
But it's to me, I think there's something very interesting in that how we paint letters and kind of transmit this uh, personality to them. I think, right? Like
yeah.
larger than life personality.
Yeah,
Uh,
like a persona or something. Yeah.
yeah, and that seems to come across in your work because it one it's your style is big, it's aggressive. Sometimes like this piece actually looks more in the classical uh, New York style,
Mhm.
um, um, with long, sharp lines. In terms of like where you see yourself going with this art, we talked about abstraction. You still have your cake design interests, your creative in terms of your creative practices. How far do you see this going with the writing? Are you like a lifer, or are you just gonna one day hang up the cans and focus on the business of you?
I mean, I don't think that I could ever just hang it up. Like I don't ever really see myself doing that. Like I don't ever plan to have children. So I feel like because of that, I can kind of do what I want forever. This is what I want to do. I don't see myself changing my mind much about that. Like I think graffiti has formed me a lot into the person that I am today, and I don't think that I would be the same without it. Um,
What are some of the empowering qualities?
um, let's see. I mean, I would say, let's see. I mean, overall, in general, I feel like it's made me more confident, artist in general, like more confident person in general. Um, I mean, let's
Is it
see.
because of the risks involved?
Probably. And I mean, just a lot of things that, I mean, a lot of it is very like criminal. So, like, I mean, it makes you a better criminal. Like, if you're choosing to do more criminal activities later on or something, um, it makes you know, like, hey, if I'm standing right here, no one's gonna see me in the shadow, even though I'm right in the middle of the road or something. Um, but I don't know if that's necessarily like a highlightable quality or not.
Well, no, it kind of is. It's interesting. When I was a young kid, um, just by mere fact that I wasn't afraid to uh, walk down through tunnels gave me the heart to walk down, streets in East New York, Brooklyn at 2 in the morning where I shouldn't have been. It is it's this confidence, to walk into these forbidden spaces that toughens you up.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of people that would not go into just like a really nice, clean looking abandoned building or something like that, or like go and explore to, in different cities and different train yards and things like that. But you kind of learn like what you can get away with, even in society, like, you learn that you can just walk out of a store with whatever you want, really. Like if you
Mhm.
want to, if it doesn't have a
Well,
sensor on.
well, that said, I mean, you've lived in a bunch of cities. You've traveled quite a lot in this country. Um, I would imagine that's been an incredible journey as a writer, not just in terms of the people you meet and the places you get to paint.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It definitely, like, I feel like, um, a lot of people might be like, "Oh, that's scary," but like, I really haven't had a negative experience that I could think of at all. That is like, I just roll up into cities and meet people that, I mean, it's like, to a lot of people, I could see them being like, that is crazy. Like, you're just meeting people that you've never met before, and you might stay at their house or, like, go into a train yard and paint with them or whatever. But, I've met, like, everybody I've met everybody's been really solid. Um, Mainly, I feel like because you know, you kind of know about people through other people, I guess, too. So,
Yeah.
like, you already know if somebody's like blacklisted or like is a terrible person. You've probably already heard the reasons why people think they're.
Right, and it's a networked community. I mean, and again, this is part of what I was asking you before about your travels abroad and so on, because it is interesting how this art form is kind of a passport into worlds, very few people get to go through. Sometimes they get to know cities in a different way through writers or through the hip hop culture or whatever genre of music and culture you're into. But writing has always been this kind of rite of passage, as they say, right? It gets you like, oh, you write? Oh, bet. I write too. Let's hang out. Oh,
Yeah,
meet so and so
we're
and so and so. And next thing you know, you have an extended family.
yeah.
So we were talking about your abstract work earlier. This is a print edition. Is this print still available?
They're not actually. I had sold all of them whenever I did them, but they were it's like the only thing that I've ever really put out there um for sale that was that had abstract art included in it, which all of them were just like custom backgrounds, and then I did a silk screen print of my pieces over the tops of them. So
So will we see something like this again from you? Will you release a print in the future, possibly?
yeah, yeah, I'm sure I will. I actually have one that I've been working on that I just haven't um, gone through the process of printing it yet, but it is ready to be printed. Um, which is like, it's not something that is necessarily abstract, but I do kind of look at like aging and weathering. Like, I really enjoy doing that.
Hmm.
Um, and so that piece is like a weathered piece that I was working on. So
Nice. Well, you definitely got to keep us posted when you drop something, so we can support you
yeah, for sure.
with this. So, in the last 10 minutes or so, I want to take some questions from our guests.
Yeah.
Anyone have a question for ITSE, please chime in. And on behalf of the museum, I want to thank you for taking the time out to, one, share your amazing story, the diversity in your work, that you are a world-class cake designer, uh, and a super clever, uh, subversive train writer, style writer. Add to the list. But we really appreciate you taking the time for us here at the museum.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Why the name ITSE, says uh, Sharks Wanner. Sharks Wanner.
Oh, so why the name ITSE? ITSE was actually when I was 18, I lived in a house that burnt down, and I had a kitten an adult cat that I raised from a kitten, and I had bottle fed her and everything, so she was like my little baby. But she died in the house fire. So
Mm.
up choosing that as my writer name. Her name was Itsy Bitsy. So, and it just kind of stuck. Like I tried a couple of other names, but that guy Days from Birmingham was like, Itsy's the most unique, name that you're trying to write. So you should stick with that one.
Smart move. Bobbert Lee asks, was the Soul Line car letters done with spray or bucket?
They were done with spray paint. Yeah. And so we actually used a chalk line to try to help, keep everything straight and even.
Cool Keep 6 asks, how many whole cars you got done so far? How many whole cars have you done so far?
I don't know. Maybe I feel like maybe 10 or something. Like not I feel like it's not a crazy amount. But like I said, I feel like they like count more than like one panel. Even though you could like do one in one night. I don't know. I just feel like they just like make way more noise coming by.
So in terms of the statute of limitations for writing on freights I know very little about. I saw somebody chiming in that I don't know shit about freights, and he's actually right. I don't know. Freight culture wasn't my culture. I was the MTA New York City line, and so it's a different kind of set of rules for our trains compared to the freight trains. And I don't know what the penalties are. I know in New York City you get a felony charge for painting a train.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely can get a felony charge for painting trains, for painting freight trains. I think it just depends on what state you're in,
Yeah.
who catches you, and what they really get you for. But yeah, you could definitely get a felony charge for it.
If you had a writer that you really, really wanted to paint with, who would that be?
I would probably say two of my favorite painters are Canadian writers, and that's Bacon and
Yeah.
Keeps. I feel like they're my favorite. Which
Nice.
I've met Bacon before, and I talked to both of them online. So both really humble, nice people. But I feel like right now those are the two that I could think off the top of my head.
Awesome. KMS Crew asks, do you create your style or have an influence that you base your art off these past 10 years you've been painting?
I mean, I feel like I look back, as much as I hate to admit that my stuff looks a lot like the stuff that I was starting out 10 years ago drawing. It really does. It like has so many similar qualities that it's quite funny to like see the difference, to be like, "Oh, look, like the evolution of it
How
is."
do you keep track of your evolution? Because somebody asked something very interesting here. What train has lasted the longest with your art? How do you know when these trains travel so far and wide, they don't operate in a loop?
Um, I mean, pretty much it's like a catch and release. Like you just paint it and then let it go. And I mean, who knows? Like it could have like like I might choose to paint a really rusty box car just because I think it looks cooler than a brand new car that's right beside it. And it might head to the junkyard in 2 years or something. Um, but I don't really care because I wanted that. So I would say photos. Like if you can get good photos, which is something that I've tried to really push, where I used to not do that, and I really regret, even if it wasn't a good piece, that I don't have documentation of that. So I feel like photos are probably the most important way to keep up with it.
You get a question from Xerxes. How far into your writing career did you feel comfortable hitting freights? How far in your writing career did you feel comfortable to hit freight trains? And was there a turning point where you were like, okay, now I can burn?
Okay, yeah. So I originally, like, I was like, I want to paint trains. Like, I wasn't like, oh, I want to paint this wall. Like, I was like, I want to get good at graffiti, or at least good enough where I can paint trains and people aren't like, ugh, that's horrible. Um, so the first train I ever painted, I actually waited to paint a train until essentially I had permission. Like, days took me out to paint my first freight. So after that, I felt like, okay, like I could paint trains now. Like, I felt like if I went with somebody else and they were like, yeah, you could paint, then it was okay to paint them. But I never, and I look at some stuff on trains and I'm like, where did these people, this is just garbage, and they just ruin the trains. Like, I mean, where did they, I feel like that is like what makes a toy, is like the mentality of like I don't know if they just think that they're good enough that they can, but I've just had a higher respect for trains and felt like, you know, you need to be of a certain, at a certain point to paint them. And I mean, I did still paint trains in the very beginning. I was painting trains and I knew they sucked, but I was like, I'm gonna get better for sure.
And you did. And you have another question here from Conrails. What's your favorite train logo?
Oh man. Um
UP?
I really do like the UP logo. Man, that's hard. I like this one that I can't even think of the name of it, and I feel like somebody would, but it has like a wolf howling with a moon over it. It's like a New Hampshire and something. It's like a vintage car, and it says like "Live free or die" or something around it. It's
Love it.
cool.
So ITSE, I want to thank you. I'm down to my last minute with you. I want to thank you on behalf of the museum for sharing your story. On behalf of all of us OG style writers, thank you for keeping the tradition going and doing it so well. If you have any quick last minute shout outs to your people, please feel free, shout them out, because I'm sure a bunch of them are online ranting and raving.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, thank you for having me, obviously. And thank you to everybody in my crew and all the awesome people
Big
that
up.
I met and that I'm going to meet in the future.
Right on. So with that said, folks, again, I want to thank ITSE for joining us and remind you all to be safe out there, you know, protect yourself at all times from COVID and also ignorant people. You know, we're all one, and, you know, we're all supporting Black Lives Matter and trying to keep our head above the water, above the evil politics we are all facing in the world right now. But that's not the place. This is not the place for that. But I want to wish you all well tonight and moving forward. Thank you, ITSE.
Bye. Thank you.
Take care.